Hello! I do not have much time because I'm seeing Black Panther in less than an hour, which I'm incredibly excited about despite never having watched an MCU movie before, but I'm hearing amazing things about Black Panther and I'm very excited about it, but that is not what this video is about. So I want to do my February wrap-up where I go really quickly through the books I read in February and my March TBR with the books I plan to read in March. I read 4 books in February, which was pretty good, I think, although I'd been hoping to get 5. The first book that I read was Blood Debt by Nancy Straight. This book is about centaurs. To be honest, I haven't rated it on Goodreads yet. I still need to write my review, and when I finished it, I was still very much in a I don't know if I want to mark this as 2 stars or 3 stars. That's where I'm at with it. At first, I was like, how is this even a centaur book? They're just magical beings, but they're not centaurs because you get told early in the book, we're not actually horse or half horse. And so it's well, then what's the point of you being centaurs? That did turn around a little bit. You kind of got to the point later, but there are some things in here. Centaurs are supposed to be matriarchal, but then when you get into the book, they're very much not matriarchal. You keep getting told the women are in charge of everything, they control everything. But then when you get into the book, you find that that's not actually true. You keep discovering these families where the men control everything, even though they're supposed to be matriarchal, and it's just you're telling me they're matriarchal, but you're not doing anything with that. That wasn't my only problem with the book, by the way. It's just one. Then I read The Confluence by Pooja Guha. This is actually an epistolary book, so the main character is writing a letter to her son, and it's the story of how she came to adopt her son. I gave this 3 out of 5 stars. There were a lot of things about the writing itself that I didn't really like. As far as the story goes, there were some things that annoyed me. The main character is engaged to be married, but we never really get to meet her fiance. I think he's in the book twice, and the rest of the time he's off the page. And I'm more forgiving of that now than I was right when I was finishing the book, because I realize that it is ultimately the story of the main character and her son and aunt and cousin and things, and not a romance story. But it still would have been nice to meet her husband more than we did, or her fiance/husband when she's writing the letter. But I don't know, I liked that it had a focus on family. I just feel I wanted more from it than I got, and that combined with me not loving the writing style. I think a lot of my issues came from the fact that it was a letter, but it didn't feel like a letter. I had a hard time believing she was actually writing all of this to her son in the way it was written, because there were times where she was explaining things and I'm would you actually put that in a letter to your son? It doesn't really make sense. So it was hard to suspend my disbelief sometimes. Then I read The Forgotten Ones by Laura Howard. This was from the same anthology that I read Blood Debt from. The magical beings in there are called Danan, I think. I could be pronouncing that wrong. Which are essentially fairies from my understanding, the name for fairies in Irish folklore. I gave this book 3 out of 5 stars. It was better than a lot of other books that I've read from that Gods and Mortals anthology, even though I did have some problems with it. For one, I'm very confused as to why the story takes place in America and why all of these Irish fairies are in America when they supposedly came from Ireland, and Ireland's supposed to be important, but it's just I don't know how to explain it without really going into detail, which I don't want to do, but it just seems very weird that the action of the story is taking place in America. It doesn't really fit with everything else that you know about these fairies, so I don't know. You also have the weird manipulation of the fairies that you get a lot of the times in literature with fairies, so expect that going into it. The last book I finished in February was Shinto the Kami Way by Sokyo Ono. So I actually bought this at a temple in Kyoto. They had some English language books, and this was one of them, and I have since learned that this is a very, very popular book if you want to learn about Shinto, and I did not know that when I bought it. It was actually originally an academic paper, and then they published it as a book, so it's very academic, but it's easy to read at the same time. I didn't really have any difficulty with it. There are times where it gets like kind of dry and things because it's an academic book, but it's short enough, it's really not that thick, that it never really got that boring, and plus I found it interesting, so that helped. I did give this 4 out of 5 stars. If you want to learn about Shinto, I would recommend it. Even though it is an older book, I believe it was published for the first time in like the 60s, maybe? Yes, 1962. So it is older, and there are some points in the book where you can kind of tell, but I mean, it's talking about an ancient religion that hasn't changed that much in a very long time, so it's not really that big of a deal. Moving on to my TBR, it's actually March 4th as I'm filming this. I finished a book on March 2nd, so I'm going to include it in my TBR because I did finish it in March, but that's marked by Kim Richardson. I won't tell you what I gave it, even though there is a part of me that really wants to rant about it because I just finished it 2 days ago. I'll save that for my wrap up next month. Then, book that was in my TBR last month that I didn't get to, the only one I think, is Harry Potter, A History of Magic. So I talked about this last time. I really want to finish going through all the books in that Gods and Mortals anthology because at this point I have to read all of them for myself because I've gotten so far in it, even though I've hated most of them. One of them is Relentless by Karen Lynch, which apparently has vampires in it. I know almost nothing else about it. Then I want to read Harry Potter, A Journey Through History of Magic. So this, again, a collection of artifacts from the exhibition at the British Library. Very similar to this, to be honest. I knew that the History of Magic, the Harry Potter, A History of Magic exhibition thing was happening, and I knew that there was a book about it that I wanted because it looked pretty, and that was this one. I did not know that this existed, and then for Christmas my parents sent me both of these, which I was surprised about, but I did not know there were 2 books for this exhibition, and I'm still a little confused as to what exactly the difference is here, or which one I should read first. So Runes by Edna Walters. The synopsis on this one is very vague, and I don't really know what it's about. Something about the main character's father has apparently disappeared, and their mom has a secret, which is very much a staple of the books in this anthology. I guess there are runes too, since that's the title of the book, but I don't really know what the magic is. All of these books in this anthology center around like magical beings in some way, so I'm assuming that there are some in this book, but I don't know what they are. But we will see, I guess. So that is everything. I will see you next month with a wrap up in TBR, and hopefully before then with videos. We shall see. I will see you guys later.